Morning folks, Dave Canterbury with the Pathfinder School. What I thought we'd do today is continue with our Fire School series a little bit. I want to go back and show you a little bit more 18th century technology per se. What we're going to do today is we're going to make rub cloth, and we've talked about a lot of different ignition methods in this series. We talked about friction fire all the way through to the ferrocerium rod. So now let's go back and look at a few tips and tricks that we can use with different ignition methods to help us ensure that we have a fire even in conditions that may not be optimal. And rub cloth is something that you can make if you have gunpowder available. It is very reminiscent of the way that cannon fuses used to be made. We're going to make that today, and we're going to use that for ignition purposes in a marginal bird nest. Stay with me, we'll get started. Okay, so the precedence of rub cloth basically is we're going to take a piece of regular 100% natural material like a cotton, linen, Osnaburg, something like that, something that we have with us, and we're going to impregnate this with black powder. And you can't use smokeless powder for this. You can't use Pyrodex. And I'm going to use the triple F powder right out of my powder horn for my flintlock for this. And what we're going to do is we're going to wet the cloth or the gunpowder itself, and we're going to make it moist and kind of mushy, and then we're going to smear it into the cloth. And when we're finished with it, it's going to look something like this once it dries. It will be a gray color cloth. So let's get this ready and we'll get some rub cloth made, and then we'll demonstrate to you how it works. So all we need to make this rub cloth, like I said, is we need a piece of material that's made out of natural material, so it's got to be cotton, linen, Osnaburg, something like that. And then we need a little bit of water, and we need some powder. And we can just take our horn and pour some powder out here on this stump, just like that. And then we're just going to take and wet our cloth a little bit. I like to get my cloth damp. Better to do that for me. That works out better for me, to just get that cloth nice and damp and kind of wring it out a little bit, and then smear the cloth into the powder like this, and just saturate that cloth with the black powder. And once you've got it completely blackened like this, you pretty much have what you want. And then you're just going to lay that out to dry, and when it's finished, it will look like this. We should be able to ignite this in a lot of different ways. If we're trying to stay with 18th century ignition methods, we would use flint and steel. We could also use a magnifying glass. But if we were using modern equipment, we could also use our ferrocerium rod. And our ferrocerium rod would ignite this very, very quickly, because the sparks are obviously a lot hotter than the sparks from flint and steel. But we're going to try to use traditional flint and steel for this today. And with flint and steel, the closer you get to the material that you're dropping sparks onto, the better off you are, because as the sparks drop, obviously they cool down. So we want to get kind of right on top of that material if we can, to strike our sparks onto it. And it's gonna and you can see how that goes up, and now that whole piece is actually burning. And it's burning very slowly, but it's burning very hot, because it is gunpowder. So it's burning a lot hotter than a normal ember would probably burn, because you have the gunpowder accelerant. So a piece of char cloth would not burn near this hot. So something like this is going to be very good for a more marginal type tinder bundle. And we'll get us a little bird nest together off some stuff we've got laying out here on the ground, and we'll test that theory. Okay, so I've picked up some poplar out here off the ground in a couple different areas. This was laying over in the side of the woods, probably left there by some other class that was out here, and it's definitely got moisture in it. No question about that. Like I said, it's been laying directly on the ground. But we'll process this down We don't need the whole thing probably for this. We'll set some of that to the side, and then we'll just kind of process this down. And the key to any bird nest, as we've talked about in the past, or tinder bundle, is to break this thing down to the finest fibers that we can get so that we have the maximum amount of surface area for combustion. The fine fibers are going to combust much quicker than the heavier fibers or the barks, the outer barks. So we'll just split this down, and the more we do this, the more we're actually drying out the material as well. Taking your time to make a correct bird's nest or tinder bundle, in my opinion, is a huge factor in the effectiveness of your ability to make a fire. Sometimes the ember is the easy part. In this case, you'll see it's a really easy part. But getting something combustible to combine with that ember is sometimes the trick. And we'll shred this down really, really good, and then we'll get started. All right, so once we have our bird nest ready, now we're just going to take a piece of our rub cloth, and I've cut this off. This is less than a full piece. And I'm just going to put that inside the nest and try to strike my sparks down into that cloth while it's in the nest. There we go. Okay folks, well that was just a real quick tutorial on how to make rub cloth and how to utilize rub cloth. Remember that you're dealing with black powder. Black powder is dangerous, so you need to use caution when you're making rub cloth and utilizing rub cloth. The other thing that you need to remember is you never want to put rub cloth on top of your flint and strike your steel on it. You want that away from your hands because it's going to burn a lot hotter because of the accelerant. It will give you a 3rd degree burn just like that. So you want to make sure you get that away from you, on the ground, on a stump, in your bird nest, and strike down into that. Don't ever hold it on top of the flint and try to ignite it in your hand. I'm Dave Canterbury at the Pathfinder School. I appreciate your support. I appreciate your views. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, and for our business, for all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends. And I'll be back with another video as soon as I can. Thanks, guys.